Hey y'all, keeping it real with Kelz here. We're going to talk about soft life, real lessons built the hard way. Today, the episode's title is Curating Peace After Survival. And man, I think a lot of us have been in survival mode for a long time. I know that my life has been built around survival mode, and I'm really genuinely not sure where that started. I had a good upbringing, but my parents did teach me to work hard ever since I was a kid, ever since I was old enough to babysit. I remember wanting to work and make my own money and, paid for my own cars and, my own school for the most part. And I had to, pay for my apartment when I was in college. And I'm not really sure where that survival mode came from, but I kind of ended up in multiple situations and careers and paths that just really put me in this hustle and survival type culture. I think it really exasperated when I was in Atlanta and around a lot of what seemed like was going to be like fun, but it was hustling all the time. I was around a lot of people that were hustlers. It was definitely a survival type culture, dog eat dog world, charge it to the game mentality, each man for themselves. I met a lot of people who I thought were friends that, I connected with, and, maybe I had somebody even like steal from me when it was the last like dollar to my name. And I've had friends steal like a credit card from me and continue to be my friend while like using a credit card. And then I found out later that they were using it. And I just have been really putting myself in situations for a long time. I don't know what I was like searching for or grasping at. Like I said, I think I was trying to just survive and hustle and pay bills and get ahead. I always had dreams, and I never had a specific idea in mind on like what my future would look like. When I was younger, I was kind of, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a news anchor. I want to be a radiologist. So I think I was easily kind of pulled in different directions because I genuinely was just open-minded and interested in multiple things, as well as needing to make money to pay my own bills and, get myself ahead. I know that a lot of people think that like survival means that you're like on the streets. And I always had a place. I always paid my bills. I always paid my car note. But I was definitely surviving out there. I even got myself in some situations, and this is kind of what led me into the military, is I got myself into a situation where somebody used my bank account and spent like $17,000, and this was back in like 2008. So at this time, $17,000 to me, I was like 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, and I had thought I was doing something that was risky, but that I was going to get myself ahead. And of course, it was a scam, and I lost all this money. The bank threatened to like prosecute me, and I ended up having to tell my parents. And, they were always the type to kind of like want us to figure it out for ourselves. But thankfully, they were able to help in that situation and keep me from being prosecuted. We were able to do some type of like settlement and payoff with the bank. And I had to pay my parents back. And at that time, I decided to, instead of going to beauty school, which I was interested in, but it didn't feel like there was a clear path, I decided to join the military for the structure. I thought that, joining the military, I would, have a clear career, and that they would kind of force me to actually pick something and stick with it, that I would have a good, education, that I would get, a steady paycheck. And of course, that is exactly what I got. But I also put myself into another survival mode. My nervous system, really had a hard time being in the military and dealing with all of the, even just basic training. Like, I made it through, but they would wake us up like constantly throughout the night, like just to just surprise you and get you ready for anything. And they would make you march for miles and miles and miles. And I ended up I got shin splints, so bad I could barely walk. And being in the military is great. It really gives you a lot of skills and structure. But if you're sensitive, it really will bring out all of your aches, pains, anything. It actually started breaking my body down. I was stationed in Korea, and it was absolutely amazing, but we did nights and days, and they switched us back and forth. And it really I started having headaches and sleep problems and a lot of anxiety. And, I was working with intelligence, and just some of the things we were dealing with were a lot for me. And after being stationed in Korea, I was in Virginia, and I actually, a few years in, I dealt with a lot of, like I said, just so much medical stuff at that time, that I ended up getting out of the military medically. And I knew I needed to find something that I could do that I enjoyed, but also I could make a little bit of money, because, the military would give me some stipend, but it wouldn't be enough to live on. So, or dreams, or get ahead, or anything, so I decided to join the beauty industry. And I worked from my apartment in a couple different houses. I made a room. I grew in Virginia. I had a bunch of clients, but I was trying so hard to just build it. I also had met my son's father, and was supporting, his transition, being a father, and supporting his transition in the Navy as we decided to move across the country together. And once we moved to Seattle, Washington area, I was actually in Marysville, I found out I was pregnant. And we actually didn't think I could get pregnant, so we had been trying, and surprisingly, right away, I did end up getting pregnant. And gracious, Maya, you're so needy. And after getting pregnant, my son's father and I's issues became worse. Became very, if you want to call it, toxic. And we dealt with a lot of bad, relationship problems when we were in Washington State. After having my son, I dealt with a lot of postpartum. He dealt with a lot of gambling. There was, some emotional and, physical abuse at times that was unnecessary. We shouldn't have even let it get to that point. I don't want to really focus on that this episode. Maybe one day we will, but it just was toxic, and I needed to separate. So we did end up separating. And at that time, I was trying to build my brand, build my business. I was teaching classes. I had just finished school as a licensed instructor. And I just really was having a hard time dealing with, being in Washington. My family's from Indiana. I had no friends out there besides the clients that I had found and the friendships that I had created over that year of me being there. So it felt like I was very, Maya, come here. It felt like I was very alone, and but my business was doing so well. So I stayed. I wanted my son to be close to my son's dad. So we kept working. I worked so hard to pay the bills in the Seattle area. As most people know, it's very expensive in the Pacific Northwest. And when COVID hit, I actually pivoted and did really, really well for myself. But I was dealing with a lot of medical issues at that time. I had to have multiple surgeries. For those of you who have been on my YouTube for a while, you can go back and see videos of me talking about my silicone injections, removal, reconstruction. I had to have multiple surgeries. Let's see, it's been at least 3 surgeries within like a 5-year period to remove, reconstruct, and then an actual real reconstruction, because the first reconstruction failed. And that took a toll on me again. But my brand was building so much that I just kept going. I was having surgeries. I was traveling back and forth to visit family. When COVID hit, I was creating online courses. I had to postpone one of the surgeries. After COVID, we decided to move to Indiana. Once we moved to Indiana, I was able to have my final surgery to reconstruct as much as I could of the damage that had been done to my body. And during that time, I was traveling back and forth from Indiana to Washington. I was hosting classes of 10 to 20 people every time I went. So each class held like 4 to 5 people. So I would hold like 4 to 6 classes every 3 months in Washington while I was building a small business here. Once I got the suites, I kind of stopped traveling to Washington because it was becoming to be a little bit too much. And I kind of lost some of the passion that I'd had, because I really enjoyed having students. I enjoyed interacting with all my clients, that reciprocal energy that you get from providing services for people. And I just was doing a lot. I was doing entirely too much for one person. As a single mother, my son was around 5 years old. He was starting school. So after he started school, I started trying to find more ways to curate my environment here in Indiana, because I was feeling let's just be real. I moved back to Indiana because I knew it was good for my son. I knew that Indiana was going to be a very different challenge for myself, because, when I was growing up, I was like, I'm not meant to be here. I'm meant to move. I'm kind of maybe I'm like a bigger city girl. I thought that, maybe I was meant to just be somewhere else. I thought as I grew up, I'm never going to live in Indiana forever. I'm getting away from here. And when I moved back, I kind of had to face a little bit of this weird, I don't know, it felt like failure even though I chose it. Yeah, it felt like failure even though I chose to move here. I tried to stay so positive. I kept going to all these networking events and meeting so many people and reaching and grasping again for something and hoping for connection and finding my own little village here. And I found a lot of people. I found a lot of connections. I found a lot. And I found some friends that I probably shouldn't have been friends with, that once again, not as much financial loss this time, but I had a friend, I don't know if how much I want to go into this today. I had a friend who I thought was genuinely a friend, and I really enjoy being around the group of friends that were part of that were, webbed off from this one person. I really enjoyed the little group that we had and that I thought I had found. But one night, probably 6 months into our friendship, an opportunity arose because I was drinking, and he took advantage of me. And at 36 years old, once again, it had happened to me when I was younger. This isn't the first time I've been taken advantage of, but I just blame myself. I always blame myself. I know better. I can do better. But what I can do in those situations is I can change my own actions. So that was the start of a shift for me. I did spiral for, I'd say, another 6 months to a year after that happened. And I was still searching. I was involving myself with people and dating people that I never would have given a chance to before because I was very lost after that happened. I also, since I wasn't going back to Washington anymore, I had lost that passion feeling of like getting from my students and my clients that made me feel so appreciated. So I really just felt lost. And building the suites was fun, but it was not giving me the same energy. And once again, I'd kind of put myself in this weird survival mode between having the suites that I wasn't really enjoying, but I knew and could see the vision for, paying, a lot of overhead compared to what I'd had when I was just doing classes and my own services, having to completely cut off the friends that I thought I had made here. It just was a lot. I felt so broken, and I also was dealing with a lot of hormonal issues. I had to go back to the doctor for another surgery. They actually did a hysterectomy on me. I still have my ovaries, but I lost my uterus and my tubes. I'd actually already lost my tubes the year before. We were hoping that an ablation and tubal would help with some of my issues, but my endometriosis and my PMDD was not at all helped by any of that. So even after my hysterectomy, although I had started recognizing where I was at, I started becoming a lot more reclusive. I started pulling back. And, my son was growing up at that time. He's now 10. So 2 years ago, I had my hysterectomy. He was 8. I started focusing more on family. I started focusing less on outside events and networking. I really narrowed in, and I ended up going back to school at Ivy Tech for entrepreneurship, hoping that it would spark something in me for the suites. And although Ivy Tech itself may not have fully sparked what I was hoping, it did help ground me in a way that I was able to kind of take a look at what I was doing. And right after Ivy Tech, I took, last year to expand twice. So before our third year, I had 35 suites, and it did become a real business at that point. And although I really didn't enjoy landlording, I started shifting to looking at it as more of a real, landlord situation and no longer a passion project. And that has been helping take some of that pressure off of the setting the boundaries, because, business is just business. And as hard as it is, like, to stay softer in my own life, I have to be able to say no to other people. And that's always been really hard for me. I was taught to like give the shirt off my back. I'm not sure if that's just a Midwest thing, a small town thing, a country girl thing. But I no longer want to give the shirt off my back. I will maybe make you a shirt or find you a shirt, or we'll make one together, or I'll help you secure your own shirt, but I can no longer give you my shirt. And I think a lot of people think that soft life is about looking cute and silk robes and maybe somebody else paying your bills, or laying around and lounging and being taken on trips and, never working, and just, being a little bit more like selfish. And, it's more of like an aesthetic than an actual lifestyle. But for me, it doesn't mean just looking beautiful and feeling soft. For years, I forgot I was allowed to enjoy things. I thought that being productive was the only way to be valuable. And I even forgot my own motto about, how we are like in charge of our own universes. And I had created like such a hard life for myself. And I had to shift. I had to start like leaning into hobbies that would make me happier. I started therapy again, and I've been in therapy multiple times, but this time has been different. I'm in a different stage of my life. I'm older. I'm 38 now. I feel like I'm like coming into my auntie era, even though I'm still a mother. But I'm really enjoying like my grandma hobbies. I've taken up gardening. I have really like decorated my house. Every room is like a different theme, and I've really leaned into the shopping and fashion, and I've gotten into like vintage luxury bags just as like a fun side gig that's kind of turned into a little bit of a I don't want to call it a hustle, because it's fun. It's still fun, and I want to keep it fun. I've been enjoying being around my crazy animals. I've been enjoying watching my son turn into a preteen. Oh, ooh, man, that has been rough. I have really been leaning into my circle more. I have a really good group of friends right now and relationship that I can count on, and I trust myself. Trust myself. Whoa, my therapist would be proud of me. I don't know if I've ever trusted myself to not do entirely too much. I've never trusted myself to say no. I've never trusted myself to accept help. I've never trusted myself to keep myself soft. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. Maybe once upon a time I did think like someone else would force me to be soft, but that's not going to happen. You have to create softness for yourself. Softness does not mean being lazy. It doesn't mean depending on others. It doesn't mean looking perfect or feeling perfect all the time. It does not mean ignoring your responsibilities and not working. It just means curating your life more. And, your space, the schedule that you have, if you have a business and the way it's structured, the relationships that you engage in, and continue to engage in, content that we create, our environments, our goals. All these things need to intentionally be curated for softness. No one's going to give it to us. So I want to end this episode with a thought. And I hope I hit on everything, because this was really important to me, just to share where I'm at now. Because for so long, I built my life around survival and hustle mode. Now, I'm just trying to build it around peace and prosperity. Thank you for being here. See you next time.